Welcome to Freya's Fairy Tales. We believe fairy tales are both stories we enjoyed as children and something that we can achieve ourselves. Each week, we will talk to authors about their favorite fairy tales when they were kids, and their adventure to holding their very own fairy tale in their hands. At the end of each episode, we will finish off with a fairy tale or short story read as close to the original author's version as possible. I am your host, Freya Victoria. I'm an audiobook narrator that loves reading fairy tales, novels, and bringing stories to life through narration. I'm also fascinated by talking to authors and learning about their why and how for creating their stories. We have included all of the links for today's author and our show in the show notes. Be sure to check out our website and sign up for our newsletter for the latest on the podcast. Today is part 2 of 2, where we are talking to Morrigan Gaines about her novels. After today, you will have heard about dictating your first stories to your mom, getting support from your husband, who helped to encourage her to publish her first book, rearranging your books when your characters talk too much, ignoring bad advice, using reviews to help improve your story, and learning how to promote on social media. Echoes of Bellek. Memory is a gift. It's also a curse. When Cyrus Arbitrum refuses to marry the crown princess of Osmaria, his father disowns him. He's cast out into the world, plagued by loneliness and memories of his troubled childhood. He's becoming the man he never intended to be, finding solace in drugs and alcohol. His life is spiraling out of control. It's only a matter of time before he gets caught up in another dangerous situation, one that may cost him everything. Tessa, a fiery woman with a passion for flowers, lights the spark of hope for a better future in his heart. She holds tight to her own secrets as she cares for her ailing father, secrets that may threaten their budding relationship. Cyrus grasps his second chance, determined to move beyond the memories that haunt his nightmares. His chance at happiness is within reach, but a darkness is rising that desires the power Cyrus doesn't know he possesses. Will he survive to shine brightly? Or will the darkness destroy him?
I mean, the past couple weeks, I haven't written anything because we've been having a lot of family stuff going on. And
Mm,
I'll come home at night, or I sit down at night and I look at the computer. I'm like, I don't have it in me right now,
that
and I have to take care
happened.
of myself first.
My husband's computer decided to yeet his Wi-Fi a couple days ago. Like the
Oh,
Wi-Fi, there was no Wi-Fi according to the computer. His computer had no Wi-Fi connection available. Not just that, like, you search for networks and it couldn't find
just
one. Like, there was no
nothing.
Wi-Fi at all to try to connect to. It was gone. So, like, 4 hours later, I fixed it, but then my brain was so, like, angry from it taking 4 hours of editing audio time so that I could have my weekend totally off to fix this computer. I was like, I'm so mad I cannot write right now, because if I try to write right now, it's going to be angry.
Yeah. Yep.
Or I'm going to be staring at the screen going, "What?"
Yeah, that's pretty much where I've been lately. It's just like sit down, stare at the screen. It's not working. So I've just go and do other stuff that's self-care at that point.
Mhm.
Because if I force it, I mean, sometimes I do. I said sometimes I'll like join a word sprint on a Discord, like 15-minute word sprint, and sometimes that helps break me free from that. But
Mhm.
sometimes it's just a matter of taking time for you and self care. And I've
That's what
seen
all of my
a couple
writing is.
authors.
Is like I always write in, like, so at the beginning of the year, I committed to, like, 10 minutes a day of writing, so that's essentially what all my writing is these 10-minute, 15-minute writing, just sprint it out. We'll go
Yeah,
back and clean it up later, but just, like, get it done.
I found this a really useful, like if I'm especially when I'm stuck in a scene where things are just not working out in the scene for me, is
Mhm.
setting that sort of like time limit and just writing whatever I can. And usually it just like unlocks something in my brain.
Yeah. Your
And
brain's
so
like,
like,
"No
oh,
stress."
okay.
Yeah, that's I feel like so there's authors that I know set, like, a word count per day they have to get out, and then there's authors that are like, I don't know, word count per day I think is the most common goal that I see, but I was like, "That's not realistic for me," because, like, I'm narrating and I'm, working full time and I'm having to, like, prep other narration books. Like, I have so many other things going on that I was like trying to say, like, "Oh, you have to write 1,000 words a day or 5,000 words a day or 10,000 words a day." I don't have time for that. So I'm
Yep.
like, in my like 10 to 15 minutes I write each day, I can get like 2 to 500 words done in that time period, depending on like if my brain is working. I had one day where I had to come up with the job for the main character's dad, and I'm like, I cannot think of what job would make sense for what I've set up for his life so far. So it turned into 15 minutes of me and my husband like, what would be good blue collar jobs that like you could do this and that while you work? I ended up Googling a list of blue collar jobs in case anyone
Yeah.
needs ideas for how to find jobs for your characters. Google it.
Yeah, I have so many things I have saved in bookmarks, just random things I've had to research. I'm like, oh, that's not useful right now, but maybe for later. I'm
Yeah.
gonna need that.
And then keeping track of all the like random what color eyes did I give that character? Throw that into a Google sheet so that like you can
Yeah.
reference it later.
I have like a character spreadsheet of like ages is my big thing. I always forget what ages I gave my characters.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, instead of digging through, I have it in a Google spreadsheet. Okay, this is the character, this is their age, this is, who they're related to in the book, because otherwise I
Yeah.
just lose it at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, and names too. Names, because I am terrible with names. So at the point that I've like finally figured out what name to give, I have to keep track of that because
Yeah.
like I'm like I can't I can't figure it out. So, what would you say is the best and worst advice that you've gotten? So, what's the best piece of advice you've gotten and then the worst piece of advice you've gotten?
I would say the worst pieces of advice I've seen or gotten, because sometimes not directed at me, but it sort of ties back to high school. I had one English teacher who was a new English teacher, and it was senior English. And he criticized my use of what he termed outdated language, because I wrote with a lot of, or I didn't write with a lot, but I used words like therefore or whereas in my writing in high school. And
Sounds
he
like a personal preference thing, but okay.
crossed them all out and said, that's outdated English. No one uses it anymore. Don't use them. Only English teacher I've ever had do that to me. And I just remember being so mad because it was more of a personal preference thing, and everyone has their own
Yeah.
writing style. So anytime I see anything on TikTok, anywhere else, where people are criticizing something that's really just a personal preference,
Mhm.
I get aggravated because it's so easy for young authors, I think, and young writers to fall into this. I have to make my writing perfect grammatically. It has to
Mhm.
follow the exact expectations of people, but then you start losing your voice.
Well, that's
And
all
I've
these
had to
ones
find that balance.
that are like books have to follow this exact plot scheme of
Yep.
stuff. I'm like, how boring would books be if every book followed the exact same recipe, the exact same way? It'd be all the same book.
Yep.
No one wants to read the exact same book over and over and over again.
And one time that this really drove it home for me is I homeschool all my 4 kids. So we were reading some E.B. White and Stuart Little. And E.B. White is notorious for run-on sentences. I'm not sure I've seen any children's author of sentences that go on as long as his manages to do. And as a kid, I never noticed this, but as an adult, I'm reading it out loud and I'm not finding any place to pause. And I'm like, okay, if like E.B. White published nowadays with some of the people that are giving their editing advice on TikTok, they would not be happy with how he writes and his writing style.
Right.
But he's a well-known children's author. He's
That's
famous.
Charlotte's Web, right?
Charlotte's Web, Stuart
Yeah.
Little, The Trumpeter, the Swan, all those. And
Yes,
so that was really
I
the
don't
point where I was like,
know.
okay.
I don't think I noticed it reading Charlotte. I don't really pay attention to that.
I feel like
As a
Stuart Little
narrator,
is a
I have
lot
to
rougher.
I have to find the pauses when I'm narrating because I do come across sentences where you're like, there needs to be air in here somewhere. Where could I like slow down for emphasis in this sentence? It's like
Yep.
I'm used to having to do that already. I make my own commas and periods. There should really be one here, I promise.
And there's also another reason why I don't feel so bad now about pulling A Treachery of Ravens off the market and rewriting it, because I actually found out that Tolkien actually rewrote parts of The Hobbit to better fit in with the whole series.
Mm.
So there's like a whole chapter he rewrote in it and then republished it. So I feel like books are in a way sort of evolving and living where we can make
Mhm.
changes and we can make them better. And I know in traditional publishing that's sort of frowned upon,
Well, it's harder
but
to do because it's
it's
such
harder
a
to do it
long
as well.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a huge, you're already set out, 1,000, 2,000 books. But as a smaller author right now, it's nice to have that freedom of finding sort of my voice and being able to correct things I know aren't quite right in
Mhm.
order to make my work stronger in the long run. So it's a nice thing about being sort of a smaller author and a self-published author is I have that freedom.
Right, you can pull it and,
Yep.
fix it relatively quickly as opposed to, like, I've worked with a couple authors that do work with not big publishers, but, like, smaller, like, small press stuff, and, like, it's a long process, like, if they fix it, it's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'll fix it in the next," you know, iteration, but that might take, months to get the new version done, so
Yep.
it's yeah, not a fast process if you're with any kind of a publisher. I have one author that's constantly like, "Do not sign with a publisher unless it's a trad pub or like a big pub," and I'm like, "I have no desire to give away my royalties to anybody, so unless you're bringing some hell of a promotion team behind it, no."
Yeah, I will say I'm a control freak about my writing, and the idea that a publisher would have like a say in what my characters are doing and how they're written and what I publish, even any series right now that I'm writing, just makes me not comfortable. So it's not really the way
Yeah.
for me to do it. But I definitely also see like I know back when I was younger, as a kid, it was like, oh yeah, I'll get signed on by a publisher, and they'll publish my books. They'll be all known all over the world, like that idealized view of it.
Well, now, I mean, there's authors that have done really, really well for themselves just based off social media and TikTok and,
Oh
all
yeah.
the other things available that like don't have their books traditionally published. I mean, there's tons of authors now that have their books in like Barnes and Noble that aren't published through a publisher. They did it themselves.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, as long as you're putting out a professional product, whether you are able to do all the steps yourself and make it look professional, or whether you like with you with your cover knowing like this is outside of my wheelhouse of being able to do it, I need to pay someone to do this because I can't.
Yeah. Yep.
Like as a instead of putting out a cover that wouldn't have been your favorite or whatever. Now I've seen some people very 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 proud of their covers that they made themselves and I'm like, "Ooh." So I would never tell anyone that, like, to their face, like, actually, to be honest, I did tell one author that, but it
I guess
was
it depends. I would tell them if they asked for honest feedback.
yeah, that's
I
it was a
cushion it, but I'm like,
yeah. It was an author I had a really good like, I narrated a bunch of books, for them, and I was like, we had a like, every single time they would ask me, like, "What did you think of the story? What did you think of this? What did you think of that?" And so then I got an offer on another book, and I was like, "But can we remake that cover, though? Because it
yeah.
doesn't fit with any of the rest of the books, and, like, if I were to just see this book up for audition, I would not have touched it." So
And the thing about like being a small author, I've found that I do need to rely a lot on that sort of feedback from other people. Like my beta
mhm.
readers, I had to be like, yeah, be honest. And the ones who are really like bluntly honest to me are the ones that have been like the most helpful in
Yeah.
me saying, oh, okay, this storyline isn't working for the people. Like this person isn't understanding it. Or, this comment, I need to really reevaluate it and see if it actually fits with the character. And
Mhm.
so it's really great that we have the ability to reach out to all these different types of people and reach out across social media and actually make those connections with the technology we have nowadays.
Well, it's even with, like, I get bad reviews on audiobooks that I've done or whatever. I'm like, if it is constructive criticism,
Yes.
like if you're just coming on and you just say you don't like my voice, I can't do anything about that. My voice is my voice. It is what it is. People don't like I have more like a newscastery way that I kind of narrate, or that's what I have been told. A lot of people don't like that apparently. Some people love that. So I can't change it because it's differing, like they can contradict each other. But if I were to get something that was like, "Oh my god, why does she I don't even know what to give an example of, but, like, if there was something, like, in your book, for example, if someone was like, if you were constantly getting comments about like the editing being really bad,
Yep.
you should take that into consideration. Do I think you should look at all of your reviews? No, I think, all of our mental
I have
health can't handle that, but
I have some friends who will not look at the reviews, just because it does not help them out in any way in terms of mental health. Personally, I like looking at reviews, and I love
mhm.
it when someone offers constructive criticism because it really helps. It does help me as an author. I
Mhm.
don't interact with reviewers unless they come and interact with me.
Yeah, they
In which
tag you
case,
in.
yeah, if they tag
Yeah.
me or if I've already talked to them before and I know that they're okay with interactions, because I'm a reader and an author, so I understand that there needs to be a safe place for them to say what they need to say.
Right.
And I've also had times where I've written long reviews about books that I didn't like or maybe just didn't quite work for me, and then post them. I've been like, I'm really nervous. I hope this author is like the nice type that isn't going to come at me, because we all heard the horror stories
Yeah.
of the authors just losing it on reviewers.
Right.
Luckily, it doesn't happen very often. I found that
I
most
think there's
authors I've dealt with are great.
yeah, I think there's a couple just repeat offenders that we see
Yeah.
constantly, I think is what
So
it
I know that like
is.
on TikTok there's a big debate for a while about whether or not authors should ever interact with reviewers, and some people were firmly in the authors should not be talking to reviewers at all. And I find that difficult to understand because authors are often also readers.
Yeah.
So we're going to be interacting with other readers as well, and we're going to be talking to them. And if a reviewer, like I've had one person who was reading my arc of Echoes of Bellek, and she messaged me. She said, "Hey, I'm gonna send if I notice any typos because I know it's an arc. But do you want like my play-by-play reactions? Do you want me to send those to you?" And I was like, "Yes, please."
Yeah.
Please do, because I love seeing that. And it's not something I usually get to see because you send your book out in the world and
Right.
then you don't really hear anything about it unless someone does a review about it.
Yeah, I came
So like she sent me
across
all her play by play. It was amazing. I loved it so much to see all
yeah,
her reactions and to know in my head what's coming up in the next chapter as she's reading.
right. I came across one author who talked about when she sends to her, I don't remember if it was alphas or betas, 3 chapters at a time, and then she would send them kind of like a questionnaire, but it was more like a how do you feel about the chapters? And if like the
Mm,
ratings for it were under like say there was out of 10, if it was under like a 5, she would go back and rewrite that chapter because like if they didn't like it enough, something was wrong with it. I thought that was an interesting way. I don't know, it feels a little tiny bit clinical, but also it seems like it would be a good idea in some instances.
yeah, I can
Um,
see how it would like remove that pressure of, especially if it's just a rating, remove that pressure of having to like worry about writing out a comment or being able to
mhm.
like say what you want to say about it, but not maybe knowing how to word it. Um, I do question though, what if it's a chapter where the reader's not supposed to like it? I mean, maybe
I
it's a
think
chapter
there
where
was
they
like
hate that chapter.
I think there was like a series of questions and like how would you rate this part of the
Okay.
thing on a scale of 1 to 5 or whatever, and like if it scored under a certain amount then she would
Because I
redo
had a
it.
book recently and I the book was fabulous, but the book made me so frustrated and upset for the main character. It's and so like I wrote my review. I said, I think the author meant it to do this. And later on she actually saw my review and like confirmed, yes, I meant it to be that way. But it made me so frustrated as a reader for the character and what the character went through and the resolution at the end for the character. It's part of a series too. So obviously I'm gonna have to read the series as it's put out.
Right.
But it was what the author intended. Is she
Mhm.
intended that to have that impact to make a point about some societal issues in the book.
Mhm.
And it was very well done because it gave me that reaction that it was
Yeah.
supposed to give. So it's interesting just sort of how that all ties together, emotions and everything,
Yeah.
and trying to find that balance.
At the end of the day, I think it's write the book that you want to write and that you are
Yeah.
happy with at the end. Know what your strengths and weaknesses are as far as like the process goes. The author I just talked to talked about the first editor she worked with did her formatting for her and then she had to do her formatting, and so she's like the learning curve of having to format her book on her own suddenly, and now she's helping other people format their books, and I'm like, I mean, that's just one of those things like you just have to know like I've been I have 3 podcasts, okay? And so I make a lot of graphics and stuff in Canva, but it's, like,
Yep.
something that I'm like, I wish I had the funds to be able to pay someone else to do it because, like, while I am capable of doing it, it takes time and it's so annoying.
Yeah, if
So
it's not, yeah, that part, like being able to outsource what is just not your thing if you're
yeah.
able. I think that, yeah, I think some of the best advice I'd say, other than writing your own stories, also just being open to constructive feedback,
Mhm.
because sometimes it's hard because it's your baby. Like, you write this and you work so
Mhm.
hard on it, and then when someone says, "Hey, this character, this is offensive," or "Hey, this just doesn't make sense to me," and you keep getting the same feedback, like you were saying, you
Mhm.
need to be able to understand that they're not coming at you.
Mhm.
They're saying, "Hey, to make this book better, here's some feedback. Here's
Right.
ways to improve it."
Well,
So
especially in
that's,
situations like offensive stuff, you would
yes, yep,
now, sometimes I do realize that is part of the story, and other times that needs to not be part of the story, but being aware of what you have in there that could possibly be offensive, I think is also very important.
yep. I mean, I have, in the second book, I have a character who's purposely offensive towards a character who's non-binary, but I also address it with the other characters where they're like, "This is not right. Like, you
Yeah.
can't be this way." And I haven't gotten any negative feedback about that because it's part of that character. Is he's not a good character. He's not a good person.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's all that's slightly different. I don't know. I feel like I'm like so like I don't want to step on anybody in pretty much every so I posted a video. I talked to an author a couple weeks ago who talked about going through her followers and deleting like ones that weren't actively like posting on TikTok and ones that like didn't ever post about books and like all this stuff and like removing them. So I like started doing that because I don't know, the way algorithms, to my understanding, work is they send it out to like a percentage of people that follow you and then see how many interact and then they'll send it to more. Well, if like all the people they're sending it to aren't book people, they're not going to interact with your book videos. So
Yeah,
I start doing that and I post a video. And the mistake that I think I made is mentioning what I was using because authors mention all the time that they're cleaning up their feed, they're cleaning up their
yep.
followers and stuff, but they don't usually mention what they're using as the like how to get
The
rid of
line.
people. So I'm like, I think that's where I went wrong. I said like what exactly I was looking for in accounts. And I'm like, maybe we shouldn't do that. So I like made the video private and have continued to remove followers. But I'm just
I'm
like,
curious to see what happens in my account if TikTok sticks around, because I had two videos that were not book related get like 1.7 million views
oh
each the
gosh.
past couple of weeks,
Oh gosh.
um, which is fabulous that they got that many views. I just had to post them. It's literally just a cap cut template over a song that came out recently, and it hit, and so my own little caption of my reaction to it, and it hit a lot of nerves apparently.
Mm,
um, and so I've gained over, I think I want to say about 2,000 more followers in the past couple weeks.
oh
I think
gosh.
solely because of those videos, but I don't know like what their interests are, if I'm going to get interactions, because on my other videos I've seen a little bit more action, but not the amount that you'd think for that many new followers.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna see what happens because I don't want to just like delete people, especially since a lot of people just like my husband, he just uses TikTok account. He doesn't post videos. He has his picture and his name, and that's it. So a lot of people, that's what they do.
Mhm.
And so I hate to delete followers that are honestly interested in what I'm writing and what I'm doing
Well,
if
what
I
was so
can't
funny
determine.
so I post this video and I didn't get it got quite a few views pretty fast, not millions.
Because it's controversial in TikTok's
And I
opinion.
had 4 people comment on it, 4 people who had never been following me. I've never seen their name before, but they were incredibly upset that I was
Oh
removing
my.
accounts that I'm like, if someone, I'm like, for example, you 4 people who are very upset about this whole video, if you 4 people were interacting with my videos, you're liking, you're commenting, you've talked to me before, like I know
Yep.
who you are, that is completely different from someone who is lurking and never liking and never commenting and I don't even know you exist because all you did was
Yeah.
like follow me at one time and then never do anything ever again. Like now if I'm kind of to the point where I'm like, I don't even know how far down the list I am, but I'm like, I only have like 2,000 followers total, well, less than 2,000 now, that I've removed a bunch. But I'm like, it's exhausting to have to go
Yeah.
through. I saw
It
someone
takes so
talk
much
about
time.
they are going through right now and following all their mutuals on like other social medias in case something
Yeah,
happens.
I've been trying to do that, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even. I'm like, I just need to like put up a video and be like, listen, if you want to like stick with me forever, make sure you're on like my newsletter. But like, otherwise, I can't make any promises because like, I just don't have time. Like,
Yep.
one was like 6 hours in, and I'm like, oh, I don't have 6 hours to just like, that's too much.
Yep. 6 yeah. I have so many other things I could be doing in 6 hours.
Yes. Including the stack of audio that I need to edit for the rest of today. I'm like, like, no, no, I will not be doing that. I do try to catch ones like when I come across people that I like though, and I'll go. The problem is that like half the time I don't see the people that I like's videos, so
Yeah, I've had to go track them down pretty much and then go and
yeah,
look them up on Instagram and try to add them, and
yeah.
it's a whole process.
Well, now there's Clapper. So like I downloaded yesterday, I downloaded a video from TikTok and put it on Clapper, and it pushed it like it had been on TikTok for hours, and it had like 50 views. And I posted on Clapper, and I get like 350 views really fast. And then it suddenly stopped. And I'm like, I think something happened. And then today I get notice like, we stopped pushing your video because it has a watermark from another app on it. And I'm like, that makes sense.
Okay, yep.
So,
I've
nope.
been hearing of some alternatives, but I haven't tried any alternatives yet to TikTok. So
That's the one
I've
that
got to
I've
look into some
seen.
stuff.
That's the one that I've just seen. It's very, very similar to TikTok, like the videos and stuff, but they will not push stuff that has watermarks. Now, TikTok has the ability now, like recently, where you can download the video before you actually post it and it won't have the
Yep.
watermark. I
And there are
didn't
some
think,
apps you can get that will let you download videos without the watermark as well, I
yeah,
found.
I'm too
So
lazy
there's
to do
ways,
multiple
but
videos. Like, I have, for example, I'm on one of my podcasts, I get paid for my reels for
Mhm.
God knows what reason because there's not a lot of followers on that account, but they pay me for my reels. And on that one, it's like the rules are like it can't be posted on other platforms and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't have time. I'm like, if you stop paying me, you stop paying me, but I don't have time to make separate videos for all these platforms. Like, you're going to
Yeah.
get the same video. Now I make it in Canva, so there's no watermark on there. And then I download it and I post it to all the places. And I'm like, if you decide to stop paying me because you decide to go search on TikTok and find it, that's fine with me too. So,
Yep.
and I post the same videos to Facebook and Instagram, which are owned by the same company. So I'm like, if
Yep.
you can't even figure out between yourself that I'm posting the exact same thing, that's on you. Like,
That's your problem at that point.
yeah, I'm like, if my very small like $20 checks go down to zero, I'm okay with that. Like, at least I got to have extra time in my day. Like, it is what it is.
Yep.
All right. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
As Morrigan got older, she liked the Chronicles of Narnia. The Chronicles of Narnia is a series of 7 high fantasy novels by British author C.S. Lewis, illustrated by Pauline Baynes and originally published between 1950 and 1956. The Chronicles of Narnia has been adapted for radio, television, the stage, film, and video games. The series is set in the fictional realm of Narnia, a fantasy world of magic, mythical beasts, and talking animals. It narrates the adventures of various children who play central roles in the unfolding history of the Narnian world. Except in The Horse and His Boy, the protagonists are all children from the real world who are magically transported to Narnia, where they are sometimes called upon by the lion Aslan to protect Narnia from evil. The books span the entire history of Narnia, from its creation in The Magician's Nephew to the eventual destruction in The Last Battle. The Chronicles of Narnia is considered a classic of children's literature, and is Lewis's best-selling work, having sold 120 million copies in 47 languages. It is believed that it may have been inspired by Celtic and Irish mythology. Today we'll be reading about Oisin and Tir na Nog from Irish mythology. Don't forget we're reading Les Morts d'Arthur, the story of King Arthur and of his noble knights of the Round Table on our Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes. Oisin and Tir na Nog. Long ago, people in Ireland believed that there was a beautiful land in the Western Sea called Tir na Nog, the land of the young. It was a place where the trees were always green, the flowers were always in bloom, and men and women never grew old. This is the story of how Oisin, the son of Fionn MacCumel, leader of the Fianna, came to go to Tir na Nog. One morning the Fianna were hunting deer on the shores of Lough Lean in County Kerry. As they rested on a hilltop, a beautiful girl came riding towards them on a snow-white horse. She was dressed like a princess, and her long golden hair hung to her waist. As she drew near, Fionn called out, "What is your name and what land have you come from?" "I am Neve of the golden hair, and my father is king of Tir na Nog. I have heard of a great warrior named Oisin. I have come to find him and ask him to return with me to the land of the young." Fionn was sad, for he feared that if Oisin went with Neve, he would never see him again. But it was too late. Oisin was already in love with the princess. He accepted Neve's invitation and waved goodbye to Fionn and his friends. He jumped onto the horse behind Neve. Away they galloped into the morning mist. Over the land and the sea, the fairy horse ran, moving as swiftly as a shadow. At last, they reached the golden shores of Tir na Nog. The king and queen welcomed Oisin and held a great feast in his honor. It was a magical land. Oisin hunted and feasted, and at night he told stories of Fionn and the Fianna, and of their lives in Ireland. Oisin had never felt as happy as he did with Neve, and before long they were married. Oisin lived in Tir na Nog for 300 years, but being so happy it only seemed like 3. Then a great longing came on him to go back to Ireland. Neve did not want him to go, but at last she agreed and gave him the white horse. Neve warned him, "Set foot even once on the soil of Ireland, and you will never return to Tir na Nog." When Oisin reached Ireland, he found that everything had changed. There was no trace of his father or the Fianna. As he passed through Glean the Small, the Valley of the Thrushes, he saw a group of men trying to move a large stone. "I will help you," he said. The mighty Oisin stooped down in his saddle and with one hand lifted the stone. But as he did so, the saddle strap broke and he tumbled to the ground. Immediately the fairy horse galloped away and a great change came over Oisin. In the blink of an eye, the great hero of the Fianna became a withered old man. Unsure of what to do, legend has it that the men brought Oisin to St. Patrick. St. Patrick tried to comfort Oisin in his old age. When Oisin learned that the Fianna and his father were long since dead, his heart was filled with sadness. Oisin spoke of the old days of the Fianna and the many great deeds of Fionn, when they hunted and feasted and listened to great stories. He spoke of his time in Tir na Nog and his beautiful wife Neve. Although Oisin died soon after, the wonderful stories of Neve and Oisin have lived on. Thank you for joining Freya's Fairy Tales. Be sure to come back next week for WL's journey to holding her own fairy tale in her hands, and to hear one of her favorite fairy tales.